All right, well, hello. Thank you for joining us. I have Greg Alvarado with me here today, and he is an account executive with Spectrum Reach. So I'm excited to hear from him today. Thank you for joining us, Gregory.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, now I know that as an account executive, specifically with Spectrum Reach, your role is a little bit different than what most people think of when they think of an account executive at an agency. Can you tell me a little bit about your job and what goes into it?
Okay, so primarily I am the contact that clients and agencies have with Spectrum Reach. So there's quite a bit of us as far as fulfillment side and support. Um, but as far as who's talking to the agency or who's talking to the client, it's myself and about 19 others in Dallas Fort Worth, and we have metros all across the country. So anything from a request for a billing statement to make goods to scheduling, um, even collection calls. I mean, everything that has to do with client interaction comes through us.
So, and to clarify, when we talk about Spectrum Reach, we're not talking about it is the same company as like Spectrum, the internet provider, but your role is specifically with the media buying side of things for more of the programmatic advertising that happens through that. Is that correct?
So Spectrum Reach is a division of Spectrum, the cable company, and we're the ones that work with local companies to get them advertising on TV, streaming OTT, and online ads. My market is Dallas Fort Worth primarily.
Okay. So you said several things there. You talk about OTT ads, things like that. Can you give me a little bit of insight on kind of the 101 of what all that means? What does that look like, and how is it different than other types of advertising?
Okay. So with us, we're kind of unique. So with Spectrum, we manage not just our Spectrum cable providers in the media there, but we also rep for DirecTV, Dish, Frontier, Grande, Uverse. I might have forgotten some of them there, but it's quite a few. And then with streaming, so you've got linear TV that goes through a set-top box. So streaming OTT could be someone that has a Roku device. So they're still watching it on a large TV screen, but they're on connected rather than wired. They could be going through their cell phones, their mobile phones or tablets, and watching through an app. So they could be watching on Spectrum TV or DirecTV Now, or even Sling. And we manage the ad time for all of those. We insert commercials based on, was it lifestyle or location, geography, zip code, all that stuff. So streaming would be anything that is delivered in a connected type of way, or through the internet rather than through a cable.
So I think all of this is really interesting because, forever when you've seen commercials on TV, it's been somewhat targeted, but almost a shotgun approach of just whoever watches that sees it. But now with what you're talking about with streaming ads and things like that, when someone watches TV, typically the ad they get is not the same ad that everybody else gets, right? There's some more targeted metrics that go into that.
So it's evolving, and before it was kind of a shotgun approach, like you were talking about. And cable's a lot different than broadcast. So cable, we have lines in the home, so we do have a way to geographically target specific regions within Dallas Fort Worth. So we have about 17 different regions. Um, Behavioral targeting would be like, okay, so what's a lifestyle? So is it a female? We know HGTV is mostly females that watch that. We know ESPN is mostly watched by males. So that's kind of how our targeting has been in the past. Recently, uh, since we do have digital boxes in all these homes, we can track that data. So let's say I'm in the Fort Worth South Zone. What do people watch there that are, and the description of the demographic is men who earn over $100,000 a year, that have children in the home, that are homeowners. And we can plug that in and it'll show us, okay, here's what that description of a person is watching during these dates and with this amount of budget, you can, we suggest that you're going to be on HGTV at this time. Even though we're targeting men, we know that men the boxes for men, are showing up on these networks at that time. So it's an algorithm that goes behind it. Um, but then we can also get in and cherry pick exactly where we want them to be as well. So um, and that's TV. It's getting to be, soon we have test markets, I believe in Austin and Los Angeles, where we do have addressability, where we can say, okay, we only want to target home, set top boxes that are registered to men.
A lot of your job has to do with media buying. Can you tell me a little bit about what the process is for media buying and how you've seen it change over the years, and maybe how it's the same?
I don't buy any media personally. It's really us. We're the provider of the media, so we're selling the media, and we have either the client, like a direct client, which would be a local law firm that wants to be represented on TV, or it could be an agency. And the way that those two buy are completely different. So an agency is sending me requests, their avails requests, and they're saying, okay, so here's our demographic: men 35 to 54 or 25 to 54. Um, they within these zones, and we need to hit this many GRPs, or we need our cost per point to be at this level. Here's the market, and your share is X amount. So we have to kind of put it all together with a formula. Um, with the direct client, we're handholding. Who's your target audience? Where are they? How far is it reasonable for us to market? And this is what we suggest that you should buy. And this is your budget that we need. And then we take it from there. Do we need to add in? Do we need to take away? Things like that.
So, are there what are the limitations for you as a media seller? I mean, are there industries that you're not allowed to sell media space to, or are there particular hour limitations based on the type of industry? Or what kind of insights can you share there about what guides some of that decision making from your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right, there are going to be limitations as far as types of businesses that we can advertise for. So this morning, I had to have a conversation with the client, potential client, that is doing mobile services, mobile chiropractic services, and he's in Dallas County, and that's prohibited at the moment. So I can't do anything to represent him at the moment, as long as we're in the situation that we're in. CBD shops, that's going to be one of our, red flag ones that we can't advertise for. Liquor sales is very sensitive, so depending on the Disney, just going to have super restrictive, um, requirements, and so we can only show up at after 9. We can't have any actual liquor in the shoots. People can't be drinking, anything like that. So probably the standard. We're very brand safe. We try to keep everything um, kind of almost like Bible Belt type of restrictions on everything.
That's really interesting that different brands and different channels have different kinds of regulations on what type of ads they're willing to show. And I know that makes sense. I know there's a lot of regulations on how you advertise to children and things like that, but that's interesting to think that they have those kind of limitations just more broadly. Now, can you touch on that a little bit on I know there's a lot to talk about from a legality perspective of how advertising to children works. Do you have any kind of insights on some of the limitations or some of the horror stories you've heard about brands getting in trouble for how they approached that?
I don't know if there's going to be any horror stories, but one of my clients that I do work with is through an agency, but it's a children's physician network. So everything is extremely critical as far as us maintaining that brand integrity. So we have to look at the schedules, and we only have schedules for about 3 months out. So we buy 3-month flights typically, and I have to go through every network and every day part that they're looking at, and look at every program and list every program that's going to be airing at that time. And if it's something that doesn't meet their list of approved nets or programs, then we've got to figure out how to get that out of there. So um, our programmatic scheduler, like I was talking about earlier, would not be a fit for that type of client, because the programmatic scheduler is plugging it in where it thinks that we should be. And with something as sensitive as that, we have to say, okay, this is what when we're showing these programs and these nets, and this is the only time that we can air during this quarter. And the next quarter, we got to go through it all over again.
That makes sense. So what being that you are again in the media selling side of things, but whether we're talking about media selling or media buying, what are things that you think are interesting about the industry that you're in, and maybe misconceptions about it?
Um, Something that's very interesting is just the analytics that we have behind everything. So um, TV, set-top box TV is not. We know exactly when everything ran. We know when everything is about to run. Um, as far as tracking, it's we have to look at other sources like Google Analytics or other type of resources like that. Now, when we get into our digital products like streaming and online ads, we've got so much information there that we can, if we have an A, B, and C video and we're running it, we can look at it side by side and we can see where the drop off is on during that 30-second or 15-second commercial. So we've got a screen here and it's playing the commercial, and at the same time we've got this this drop off, and we can say, oh wow, we had a 50% drop off at this mark. What happened there? And we can go and adjust the creative. We can also say, look at click through rates and things like that. So if one ad is getting a better response, we know, okay, so we can change our linear strategy as well and our creative over there to kind of follow what's working and get rid of what's not working.
So you just touched on a huge thing that I don't think that we ever really get to talk about enough. Can you tell me a little bit about A/B testing, what the process is, and why it's so important?
Um, A/B testing, it's basically doing a comparison. You're running two campaigns at the same time, or it could be at different times, but we typically run multiple commercials at the same time. Um, it really gives us an idea of what the reaction is going to be from the consumers and your type of audience that we're trying to talk to. Um, it's important, I believe, and running that, like it could also be, running linear at the same time as digital ads, and really seeing that comparison, because we want to know what's going on, and not everybody's going to respond to the same ad. Um, we might be talking about savings, and it's not somebody that really cares about savings. All they care about is quality. Um, so, so different ad messages for different audience groups.
Yeah, I think that's an overlooked thing that a lot of people, when they talk about creative, they're really focusing on like how cool does it look, when really creative, a lot of it comes down to how influential with it is it with the audience. And I think that's one of the places that students are smart to learn early is about things like A/B testing, where you can take the two different versions, run them side by side, and then compare the results and just see, do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Because with digital, we have more control over that than we've ever had before. Um, so with that, tell me a little bit about how media selling has changed over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years.
5 years, even in 5 years, we have a lot more competition now than we did back then. I mean, what's new? TikTok and Snapchat and things like that are probably within the past few years. 10 years is a lot bigger. iPhones came out 2007. So, the mobile usage was a lot lower back then. Social media was a lot smaller. I mean, we had like a Facebook and there was MySpace back then, and just everything's changing. I've been in the business for 15 years, so that was flip phone days and dial-up days, and um, it, people still use the maps. People still use the yellow pages back then, and it's everything keeps changing. And I think it's important in this industry to be adaptable, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And just with this crisis right now, that's changing our lives completely. Um, it may be temporary, maybe long term, but advertising is going to change because of where we are. We're stuck at home. Tomorrow might be something different.
So, since we're talking about the pandemic, how have you seen that impact people's advertising expenditures, particularly with television? Do you see them pulling out? Do you see them putting more money in? I know that we're seeing in a lot of places they're worried about, advertising from event marketing and things like that. But as far as television, how are you guys doing?
Um, it's it's taken this the 12 steps of grief, I guess. At first it was kind of a just knee-jerk reaction. um, so people were just pulling advertising. They're just like, whoa, we don't know what's going on, let's cancel everything. Others were saying, okay, the show must go on, let's continue with the advertising. Everything's changing. So people that canceled are coming back. People that signed on new are canceling. Uh, um, some budgets that were smaller are just growing, you know, exponentially, just because they're like, if you're advertising like in a ballpark, um, there's no games going on right now, so you have this huge budget that you want to get in front of an audience, but how are you going to do that if there's no audience? So with TV, we have a captive audience right now. Everybody's at home. They wake up in the morning, they log into their computers, they're up all day, their TV's on, the kids are home, the kids are watching TV, their devices are on, and there's going to be streaming going on. And our spikes right now, prime time on OTT is daytime and overnight. So we're seeing this flip flop in trends as far as when people are watching and what they're watching. Sports, there's no live sports right now, but there's still people watching sports networks. And ESPN just recently announced, I guess a couple of days ago, that they're having theme nights. So I think Monday night's going to be NFL football, and I think Tuesday night's MLB, and that's how they're kind of controlling the audience as far as, hey, let's make an interest and segment it and see what type of response we can get there. And I think it's a great idea.
So when it comes to advertising strategy, I know you and I have talked a little bit about this previously, but how are advertisers or just companies in general changing the way that they do advertising to make offers that somewhat correlate to our current situation, like the car industry, for instance?
Mm-hmm. So the car industry has responded very well. They know that they still need to sell cars. They know that people still have the need to buy new cars. They have people that have the want to get new cars, and life still has to go on. We still have to have transportation, and they still have to sell cars. Offers where they're doing like zero down and no payments for 4 months and things like that. So if I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to make a car payment in the next 2 or 3 months until I can get back to work, how can I, my car's breaking down, I can go trade my car in and I don't have to put anything out of my pocket. And I've got 4 months to think about how to get that money to pay for my first car payment. And I still have provable income because I still have my job at the moment. So they've done a great job about addressing that. I'm working with an
and then
ISD. We're going to
advertising
be
it.
putting out some kind of PSA type of right, and advertising them for auto dealers, and that's going to help people, help them sell cars, and it's going to help everything else in the long run. With the independent school district that I'm working with, they want to tell people that they have online resources, and this is what we're doing, and this is we're going to help y'all through this. We're going through it as well. An attorney that I'm working with, we're doing a similar, it's going to be an online chat type of platform, and really kind of just thanking everybody, and then kind of getting out to, how can we help you during this time.
Yeah, something I've noticed about this particular kind of like world event versus some of the others is that it seems there's a lot more unity and collaboration. Like I was just having this conversation with somebody else earlier today about, if you look at the .com bubble and when that burst, or the subprime mortgage crisis, like all of those things were like kind of somebody's fault. And so there was a lot of people who were disgruntled. There was a lot of people who felt kind of taken advantage of. And there's perhaps things that could have gone differently for this particular pandemic, but prior to us getting to this point, but I do think that I've seen just a lot more like people taking care of each other than in a lot of the other scenarios. So I think it's interesting. I think it's great too.
Everybody's kind of going through the same thing at the same time. I was mentioning that just a second ago, right before we started this conference, a neighbor dropped off some paper towels and some dishwasher tabs. Uh, I've been giving her bread. She has 5 kids. I also have some eggs I'm about to drop off to her. And it's just same thing in business. We all know that we're going through this and we're all having struggles, and we're thinking, how do we help each other out through this? And so as far as marketing and advertising, we have to be able to tell people what we're doing, what do we need, and what do y'all need? How can we help you? So it's a great time to be in this business, even though we're going through this big struggle.
So I know that a lot of graduating seniors are probably worried about the job market they're going into because there's some turmoil, there's some uncertainty, in some circumstances, as if people have lost their job, they might be competing with people who are more senior than them for entry level jobs because maybe that's what's available. So what are things that you can recommend or pieces of advice that you might give to graduating seniors who are about to leave the nest and go fight for a position in this competitive market?
I think probably my best word of advice would be to kind of think about where you want to be. Um, do I want to be in TV or radio or print or software as a solution, anything like that? And really think about who else is in this business. How can I meet people that are in this business? Is it through the AAF? Is it through chambers of commerce? Do I need to get on LinkedIn? I've had people approach me on LinkedIn. They see my job title and they see the company that I'm with, and they just reach out to me. Students and recent graduates and other people that are in the industry. You really want to reach out to your network, because a lot of times, like you're saying, it could be somebody that's tenured, that's getting the job. But really what it is that they might just know somebody that knows about the opportunity. And there's somebody like myself that can vouch for this person. Yes, I know that they're good for this or for that. And you don't necessarily have to know everything about that vertical of advertising. You just have to show willingness and ambition. So ambition and adaptability will probably be the best two traits that somebody could have during this time, and any time that you're looking for a job.
And something I want to tack onto that is, it's hard to network right now. I'll admit it is a challenge with everybody sheltering in place, but business networking doesn't only happen on LinkedIn and at happy hours. Like you and I actually met at like a dad's lunch.
Yeah.
We just got to talking and became friends, and then turns out since then we know like all of the same people. Somebody would be like, "Oh,
Yeah,
my
Cassie says hi too. Cassie Nguyen.
yeah."
Yeah, she works for us now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, she was a former student of mine. She's great. I'm glad she's over there now. But yeah, I think that your network isn't only your business network. Like social capital goes beyond that, and it's really like literally everyone you know. It could be other people you're in classes with. It could be like who knows. You don't know who all you know unless you've kind of had some conversations and let people know what you're looking for. I think that's another important piece, because you can know a bunch of people, but they may know of opportunities, but if they don't know you're looking or what you're looking for, it's going to be challenging for them to support you in that.
Right.
Now,
And I was going to add on to that. I mean, it's kind of like what we're doing. We're doing advertising. If we don't tell somebody that I have this widget for sale, then nobody knows I'm selling this widget. And reaching out to your personal networks on, everybody's on social media. I mean, have an honest conversation with your group of friends. Their dad might be in the business. Who knows? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for on the flip side of that, we also have some students, obviously, that are freshmen and sophomores and juniors, and maybe they had a few years ahead of them. For those that have a little bit more time to prepare, what are some kind of just words of advice or things that you'd recommend that they try to accomplish while they're in college to, kind of prepare for when they do have to hit the job market?
Um, I think number one would be to find experience. So if you're if you can find something to volunteer for, it could be as kind of like we were talking about. You never know who you're going to meet. I met so many people through charities that I'm involved with, um, and really you get a lot of experience being around people. That's the hard part, is really figuring out how to talk to people and how to present yourself. And so what do you do? I'm in school. What are you studying? And you can, I'm studying a lot of things. Well, I'm sure you are, but you really want to kind of hone that down to like a 30-second commercial. That's what we call it in the business. And I go to just a ton of networking events and meet hundreds of new people every week, or used to, but um, but really those first couple of seconds is when you're going to get somebody's attention, or they're kind of just looking around to talk to the next person. And it's got to be like that every conversation that you have. But staying active is probably going to be the biggest thing, and making efforts towards something that's going to be productive toward your end goal. So especially if you're going to be in sales like myself, you want to start, you want to get the momentum going.
Well, and even if you're like sheltering in place, you can get involved in groups on LinkedIn and write original content, whether it's on LinkedIn or a blog or wherever. But I think, just because we can't go see people face to face doesn't mean that we can't be having conversations with other professionals in our industry about business, about just what all that looks like. So, yeah, I think that's good advice.
Yeah, and I want to add to that too. Also, um, if y'all are working on a social media project and you've got a family member or a friend that has a business, maybe ask them if you can help them out. Hey, I learned this in class today. Do you mind if I run a couple of ads for you, through your Facebook page? And all I need is a $20 budget, and you're hands on with it at that point, and you really get a real result that comes from it. And then you can analyze the data that comes from it and your insights, and you have experience doing that now, and you keep on, and you got a small business that brings some type of income. You're helping your friends and your family out. Just creative ways like that to get experience, and then you're also kind of just going through the motions that where you do have that experience now.
Yeah, and when you do that, take screenshots of everything,
Yes.
because you are
Agree.
building a portfolio for yourself right now. And even if you don't feel like helping your neighbor's uncle's popsicle shop is like viable experience, if it's the experience that you have, it's viable. Like, document all of those things, because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And at some point, hopefully sooner than later, you're going to be working on your portfolio and thinking about how to kind of put yourself out there as a professional. And it's a lot easier if you already have those things versus trying to track them all down after the fact.
Yeah, kind of, and a resume too. I mean, just keep an ongoing resume, and you can clean it up when you send it to whoever you need to. But you do have that documentation, so you're not thinking about it. You just look down and purify however you want to send it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is great. I really appreciate your time. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts on anything to do to any recommendation for students or anybody who's interested in kind of whether it's the media buying or media selling portion of the advertising industry? Just any last thoughts?
Um, I would, just a couple of things. I mean, like I keep pushing it to reach out to people that are in the business. We love our business. We're like a family. If there's somebody young and ambitious that's reaching out to us saying, "Hey, how do I do this?" or "How do I get involved?" we're going to have a million things to tell you. And we're also going to say, "This is a person that you should meet. This is a person that you should meet," et cetera, et cetera. And it's a very small family, marketing advertising. So we keep running around across each other, and we get each other jobs all over the place. And if one of us puts an announcement on social media, "Hey, I just got let go," or "They just shut our division down," there's probably 30, 40 of us that are looking for a job for that person. And if you're in that, like mentor type of relationship with somebody already, or you've met somebody like myself, um, we're going to start looking for you also. You're part of that group. So that's,
I think you touched on a huge thing that is overlooked, and that is, as a student, find a professional mentor. I cannot tell you, like, there are so many things that we will teach you in class that are about the structure and the theory, and even in many cases, the application. But the two things that really help bring all of that together and make that make sense is one, experience, getting out there, getting those internships, finding opportunities or making opportunities to like just get hands on. But the other one is, when you're networking, find a mentor, find somebody that you can get coffee with, once every few months, and just kind of pick their brain. Or when you start an internship, find that person who, is willing to take the time to invest in you, to help you grow. Because I think that this industry is very generous with knowledge, when young people are interested in learning. I think where young people burn bridges more often is when they show up and they think they know everything, and they tell the professionals how much they know. And yeah, so
you hit the nail on the head.
yeah, so I think being humble is a big part of that. But find a mentor. That's great advice. I think that's an important thing that, people undervalue. So, all right. Well, any other thoughts?
I think that's it. We touched on a lot. I mean, just be adaptable, be ambitious, and keep your head up. There's going to be some no's out there.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, tell me a little bit about, coping with criticism and rejection in sales.
Look at it. I look at no's as a small win. The ones that you want, what kills you are the people that say, "Can you call me back? Can we talk about this next week?" And they kind of hold you on a string, and you're like, I'm obligated to follow up with you now. And then they're kind of looking at it like, hey, I'm avoiding this person, but you're not, because we're as a nice person and a professional, I'm going to follow up with you until you tell me no. So if somebody tells me no from the get go, I thank them. Thank you for being so upfront with me. I know our time is valuable. Um, Now with the situation that we've been talking about, as far as with the COVID-19 crisis, I'm getting a lot of cancels, and these are huge hits. You can't take it personally. It's sometimes devastating as far as financially, but it's going to come back around, and something else is going to happen. You're going to pick back up, and it could be the same clients, but you have to give some breathing room to people that are canceling on you, because a lot of these cancels are coming back now, and they're giving me 3 times their budget. It's just they had to react, and I had to give them some space. Um, and then you want to do your due diligence. Hey, as my responsibility as your consultant is to inform you of what's going on, and this is our opportunity to do this. And so let's think about outside of the box, and how can I help you, either with us or with whatever efforts that you're doing. So it's not always a what am I going to get out of it? How can I help you? And eventually that'll come back around.
All right. Well, any final thought? I feel like we've wrapped up several times and circle back, because as I love talking to salespeople. I think that, we talk a lot to the people that are the artists and the people that are, and they're all important. But, there's a Charles Tandy quote, that he said, "Nobody has a job until somebody sells something. No accountants, no CEOs, nothing. Nobody has a job until somebody sells something." So
Right.
I appreciate that part of the process, that even if it's not for everybody, it's pretty vital for any creative ecosystem. Like, you can't be creating advertising if you don't have a client.
That's correct.
So
So getting an appointment is going to be the most important part of the whole cycle. But as far as being a shark, and that's what we call the overly aggressive um, type of salespeople. Please don't ever go that direction and try to sell somebody. It doesn't work, and it just offends people, and they remember that for the rest of their life. And if you're just a nice guy, and especially in Fort Worth, Um, it,
Fort Worth is a big, small town.
I've got a huge account right now that's coming on, and it's just somebody that I've been friends with for, I became friends with 4 years ago, um, just through networking, and I hired him for his services, and he hadn't hired me yet, and then here we are, 4 years later. It's going to be probably my biggest account. Um, it takes time, and then sometimes somebody told me no, 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 and it's like, okay, well, I'm not, pounding them, but 10 years later, they come across that time in their life, in their business life, they're like, hey, I need you. What are you, tell me about what you're doing then. And, okay, now I'm ready to listen. So a lot of it's just having patience in there also.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time today. I just saw your daughter run by, so I'll let you go.
I'm
Go take care of it.
homeschooling.
Yep, I hear you. I know that well. So we'll let the kids Zoom next time. We'll let the girls
Yeah.
get Brenly in there. We'll just take a break and let the kids watch each other.
Yeah, that's fun.
So all right. Well, thank you very much, and I
Thank
look
you.
forward to chatting with you again soon.